last week, I came to you actually on the Thursday before I recorded the message, but as you joined us in worship on Sunday, you heard something about the fact that I was running a marathon with Team World Vision, and some of you might be wondering how it went. Anybody wondering how it went? All right, great, thanks. I'm glad you asked. It was absolutely miserable in every way that you can imagine. It was horrible. I was hoping, when I started the run last week, my hope was just to run the whole thing. I didn't have to be fast. I didn't have a time that I wanted. I just wanted to keep my feet moving forward in a running fashion for the whole race. I knew that if I did that, my time would be roughly like in the 4-hour, 15-minute, 4-hour, 20 mark, because if I'm running, that's kind of like that's a good, consistent pace for me. So if you'd say, hey, what's your time you're hoping for? I would have said 4, but I really just wanted to run the whole thing. At 11 miles, I knew I was in trouble already. My hip flexors were tightening up, my back was twisting up, I was a mess. At 18, on the new LA Marathon course, at 18 miles, we're just past the 18-mile mark, you actually are running here, but the finish line is right there. It's like 200 yards away. And I knew, I'm not going to achieve my goal. My goal was to run the whole thing, and I had actually already started running at mile 16. I was not going to achieve my goal. Can I just take this little left? I'm not going to take the medal. I'm not going to pretend that I finished it. I'm not going to cheat, right? But just be done. Just be done with the suffering. So every point from that, because from that you go 4 miles out, 4 miles back, at any point I could have turned around. I could have quit. And you all know that Team Journey, and I'm a part of Team Journey, the Team World Vision that we run for clean water. And one of the things I love about World Vision is once you make a donation to Team World Vision, they don't sit and wait to make sure I finish the race to take them. They actually take your money and they put it into the field because people are waiting for clean water and they don't want to wait to see if I finish the race or not, right? So the money that I raised, it was actually already, some of it was already in the field. It was already in the bank. It was on its way. I wasn't going to get more money, or they weren't going to not get it because I didn't finish, right? So why not? Why not? I run for clean water. The water's there. Why not quit? But I just couldn't stop. I had to keep going, and I couldn't even really figure it out at the time, but in retrospect, I discovered this. If you would have asked me 2 weeks ago why you run, I said, I run for clean water. What I discovered last week is I don't run for clean water. I run for people who don't have clean water, and they can't stop. Right? They can't stop. They can't say, oh, my hip flexors are tightened up, my back hurts, I'm not going to get water today. They have to go. They have to make that. They cannot stop. And I can do something about that. We're doing something about that. And they hope that we will. I've been to Zambia. I've been in the field. I've seen the people who are getting clean water, and I've seen the people who need clean water, and they hope that we will not stop. We're in a series, Pain That Gains. Because oftentimes we hear people say, and I've said, no pain, no gain. But not all pain does gain, right? Sometimes we go through pain and we don't come out the other side in a better place. We come out on the other side in with bitterness or anger or resentment or depression. Not all pain gains. How do we take the pain in our lives and make sure that it does gain, that it's fruitful, that it's productive? And Paul writes in Romans chapter 5, he says there's a way for us to do that. He says in verse 3, he says, we glory in the sufferings because we know. I want to pause there for just a second. He says, we glory in our sufferings. I'm actually saving that phrase for the very last series for the very last week in this series, because we glory in our sufferings. Because he says, because we know. We have to know something before we can glory in our sufferings. And I would contend until you know what it is that said that we need to know, the idea of glorying in our sufferings is absolutely beyond ridiculous, right? Seriously, who wants to glory in their suffering? Who wants to suffer at all, let alone somehow celebrate it? Until we know that. So the whole series is building, what is it that we need to know so just this much, right? We glory in it is to say, hey, and we've said this from there's a reality to our suffering is a part of our life in a broken world. Pain that gain accepts that that's a fact. Pain that gain accepts that it is a reality, that we're going to have to contend with it. Paul says because of this, we know that suffering produces perseverance. Pain that gains requires grit. It requires determination. It requires continuing to press on, continuing to move forward, even when it's hard, even when it's a struggle, even when you don't know how you're moving on. It requires tapping into God's grace and His life and His love instead of tapping out. Pain that gains perseveres. One of the things that I discovered last week, because as I'm walking, I'm moving further and farther and farther back in the field of runners in the marathon. And like the people who are running 2 hour and 20-minute marathons, they're running really fast, but their suffering ends like 3 times faster than the people who are running in the back of the pack. You have to like, the heroes are in the back, I'm telling you. Right? They're suffering way longer than the people who are in the front. To continue, to press on, to persevere. Paul says, and that perseverance that we gain, that we go through in suffering, that produces character. When we persevere through suffering, we become more focused. We become more intentional. We become more resilient. We become more compassionate because we're suffering. We're more patient with and understanding of and sympathetic towards people who go through suffering. We're stronger. We're wiser. We become truer to ourselves. That pain that gains transforms us. And then in verse 5, and character, he says, produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. Pain that gains, this week's message, pain that gains hopes. Now, that raises 2 questions for me that when I hear that. First of all, what is hope? Right? When we talk about hope, what is hope? Hope is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. Hope enables people literally to conquer mountains. Hope enables people to overcome insurmountable odds. Hope enables people to survive unbelievable circumstances. Right? When people are going through something and they have hope that they will come out the other side, it enables them to persevere through the suffering. Hope is a powerful source. It's the driving force behind almost anything that we would do in pursuit of a better life. Almost anything you want to do, right? Hope would be the driving force. If you want to become more fit, or you want to get control of and have greater financial security, financial freedom. If you want to have a better career, or you want to improve your family relationships, if you want to do anything better in your life, setting a goal towards that end is essentially identifying a hope. I am hoping, believing in, pursuing that if I do these things, that on the other side of that, this will be the result. Believing in that prospect or that possibility is the driving force that helps us to do those things. And And when we then discipline ourselves and do hard things towards that goal, we're actually inflicting voluntary suffering upon ourselves. Right? I'm going to suffer now to help me get to that place on the other side. Hope is a driving force in the universe, a driving force behind our pursuits to do things better, to be a better person. Now, not all hopes are of equal importance, right? Right? It's different to say, I hope we have pizza for dinner tonight, than I hope I don't lose my job next week, or I hope that it's not cancer, or I hope that, right? Not all hopes are equal. And not all hopes are equal in terms of how confident we are that we'll come out the other side. Right? I hear people say things like, I hope that I win the lottery. The chances are like 1 in 600 million or something like that. Or I hope that one day Purdue will win the NCAA basketball tournament, which seems even less likely than winning the lottery at this point. And I don't even play the lottery. The hopes that we have are not all of equal importance. It's different, or equal confidence. Like to say that I hope that I graduate. If like you're 3 years into your program and you're going to class every day and you're taking the test and you're doing well, you're hoping that you're going to graduate, but you're also kind of pretty sure that, hey, if I stick with it, I'm going to get there. It's going to happen. The word that Paul uses when he says that our character produces hope is actually not just kind of a wishful thinking. It's actually, the word can be translated expect. That the hoper is actually waiting for what it is that they're hoping for with certainty. It's not just a feeling of optimism, it's a belief that it will happen. He says in Romans chapter 8, verse 23, kind of along the same lines, we wait with eager hope for the day when God will give us our full rights as his adopted children. We're waiting for what we know God will do. We know what. All we're waiting for, Paul says, is the when. When will it happen? And he says this hope that we're waiting for, because we know that it's going to happen, we just don't know when it's going to happen, this hope will not put us to shame. It's not going to leave us looking like a fool in front of people because we pursued some idle dream, some get-rich scheme. And people, oh, yeah, right? And then it doesn't happen. It's like, see, I told you so. It says, this hope is not like that. It's going to happen. Hope is the driving force behind perseverance. Teachers will tell you, right? A student who has little hope of passing a class has little motivation to work. Why bother? It's not going to make a difference anyway. I'm having a tooth extracted on Tuesday. I'm not real excited about that prospect. It doesn't sound very enjoyable to me, and I'm quite sure it's not going to be. But I hope that on the other side of that extraction, that I'm going to be freed from some pain that I've been going through the last couple of weeks that seems like a better prospect than what's been, right? And I'm pretty confident because the doctor that I'm going to has done this several thousand times, and I've actually been through some oral surgery myself before and come out. I'm pretty confident that it's going to work. So the hope moves me forward. We're in the season of Lent, the time of the church calendar when we're preparing for the remembrance of Jesus' sacrifice for the forgiveness of our sins, for his suffering on the cross to pay our debt. And in Hebrews, talks about this hope. It says, for the joy set before him, Jesus endured the cross. Like, not Jesus was looking at the cross saying, hey, this is going to be a piece of cake. This is going to be, no, he's looking at it. He's looking at the suffering that's in front of him. And it says, but he looks through the suffering to the other side and says, for the joy that's on the other side of that, I will go through this. What was on the other side? Salvation for his brothers and sisters, for God's children, redemption, restoration. On the other side of the cross for Jesus was ascension back to the Father, right? He had left heaven in all its glory, come to earth. He'd been humbled and humiliated even unto death. Now that journey is over. He ascends back into the heaven. A coming day when all things will be renewed, a new heaven and a new earth, no more suffering, sorrow, pain, tears, all that erased, all that wiped away. All of that, Jesus is looking on the other side of the cross, and because of what he sees in front of him, he goes through the suffering. Hope is the joy set before you. What is the joy set before you? What is the joy that's in front of you that's helping you? Or if it's not set in front of you, if you're not looking at that, if you're not looking, what do you need to look at on the other side to help you go through what you're going through right now? What is the joy set before you? First question, what is hope? The second question that I ask is, and this it's like, how is it that character produces hope? What's the connection there? How does character produce hope? A couple of weeks ago, I talked about how I got hoodwinked into a public speaking class when I was going into my sophomore year of high school. And I was a really shy kid, and it was the idea of being in public speaking was just a horrible thought, and I got duped into it somehow, and there I am in public speaking, and they started out, my teacher started out really gracious, and probably one of the best, no, the best teacher I ever had. And like the first day of class, we just had to stand up and say our name. Like, I can do that. Got that out. You know, the first speech was like your name and tell the class one thing about you. And kind of building up. And we got to a 4-minute speech. And the 4-minute speech was a demonstration speech. We're supposed to demonstrate to the class how to do something that we knew how to do. I'm like, I can do this. At that point in my life, I loved to water ski, and I'd been water skiing since I was 5, so like at this point I've been water skiing for 10 years. I taught a lot of people how to water ski. I knew how to water ski. I was going to do water skiing as my demonstration speech. I even took my ski to school, and I was going to use it for the speech. It was a 4-minute speech. And I got up in front of class that day, and I'm like, I got this, right? It's like when you water ski, what you got to do is you got to get in the water, and you put the skis on with a life jacket, and you lean back, and you bend your knees, and you put the rope between the skis, and you tell the boat to go. When the boat goes, you let the boat pull you up. How long did that take? And I'm like 30 seconds. It's a 4-minute speech. I wasn't prepared for a 4-minute speech, and my teacher's trying to help me out. Well, maybe you could show us how to put the ski on. You know what? You can't put a water ski on when it's dry. It's like rubber. It's sticky. Your foot has to be wet. The boot has to be wet. So here I am now. I'm trying to put this ski on in front of me. It won't go on. It was a dreadful experience. And I learned something that day. I would not stand in front of a group and not be prepared for what I was going to say. And I would not going to come up short, right? So if you sometimes think, golly, he preaches too long, you can blame my sophomore year speech teacher, right? He's not going to come up short. But it was going through that experience, producing character. Perseverance led to hope. That every time Character produces hope because it has persevered through suffering and has been transformed by it. Character produces hope because it has persevered through suffering and has been transformed by it. It sees that perseverance has fruit. And the more suffering you endure, the greater perseverance you develop. And the greater perseverance you develop, the more character you build. And the more growth you experience, the greater confidence you develop. Confidence is actually the same word that Paul uses when he talks about hope that is expectant. It's confidence. This is going to happen. We go through it, and we grow through it. And because we've gone through it and we grow through it, we're confident that the next time we go through it, that we can grow through it again. It's always interesting when you read a book and then see a movie. You know, what they leave in and what they leave out. And one of my favorite books of all time and one of my favorite movies of all time is The Lord of the Rings. And the third in the trilogy, The Return of the King. And one of my favorite scenes in the book that got left out of the movie is, after the hobbits have saved Middle-earth, they face the Dark Lord Sauron face to face, they've won the day, and they go back to the Shire. And in the book, there's still vestiges of Sauron, like he has minions that are still there. And the hobbits walk back into town, and the minions are trying to intimidate them, right? But they were like, they stared down Sauron. And these minions, they're just kind of like, get out of the way. Who are you? You are nobody. Because they had been through this experience and been transformed and have character and came out the other side. You see this in the saints, right? People who have walked with God for many years. That there's a confidence, a security. I remember early in my days at the Journey, then Mayfair Community Church, there were some hard times. We were going through kind of a transition in not philosophy, I mean, just in kind of the way that we were doing some things around the church, and change is hard in the church. Change is hard for all of us, and I think it's sometimes uniquely hard in the church. And so it was a hard process, and I was struggling through it, and I was lamenting with an older pastor and just kind of talking with him about it. And as I'm telling him, because he'd been through it like 12 times in the course of his life, these changes and these struggles, and he's just kind of chuckling. He wasn't laughing at me, but he just knew. And he just kind of said, yeah, just love the starch out of him. Just love the starch out of him. Because he had been through it. And he knew he'd come out the other side. And he believed in me. And if I went through it, that we'd come out the other side. Pain that gains isn't neutral, right? Pain that doesn't gain isn't neutral. If we go through pain and we don't gain from it, it's not just a lost opportunity. In the same way that when we go through pain and we gain from it, we build confidence. If we go through pain and we don't gain from it, we back down, we don't embrace the hardship, we don't embrace the struggle, we actually lose confidence. It becomes harder the next time to go through it again. I can say the biggest regrets I have in my life are hard things that I avoided. And there are more of them than I would like to admit. And the greatest fruit in my life has come from hardships that I've embraced. and seeing how God worked through those things to grow my character, to develop me. Last week at the team lunch before the marathon on Sunday, the team lunch was on Saturday, the speaker gave a phenomenal message. Her name's VanderBaan. I love her. She's spectacular. She started with these words. She says, hope is hard. Right? Isn't it? Hope is hard. Because of what Paul says. Because by nature, hope is wanting something that we don't yet have and having to wait for it. And wanting something and not having it, right? This Proverbs say, hope deferred, hope waiting for, it makes the heart sick. Hope is hard. But Paul says, but if we look forward to something we don't yet have, he says, we must wait patiently and confidently. Hope is hard. Because what? Because we have to do two things we don't want to do. We have to wait, and we have to do it patiently. Hope is hard. The other thing I hope that you probably already knew before this, but I've made the point several times, is suffering is relentless. It keeps coming. In fact, I find that the older I get, the more suffering I have to endure because the people around me are getting older, the people that I love and care about, and their suffering inflicts suffering upon me. And this thing called gravity keeps pulling me farther and farther down into the earth, and that makes my knees and my back suffer and makes marathons a completely different animal than they used to be, right? The longer... Suffering is relentless. Paul says that there is a secret. There's a secret to hope. He says in verse 5 of the passage, and hope does not put us to shame because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. It's a clue, right? The secret has something to do with God's love that's being poured out into us through the Holy Spirit, into our hearts. He unpacks it in Colossians chapter 1. He says, I have become servant to the gospel by the commission of God that he gave me to present to you the word of God in its fullness. The mystery that has been kept hidden for ages and generations and is now disclosed to the Lord's people. To them God has chosen to make known among the Gentiles the glorious riches of this mystery, right? There's a mystery. It's been hidden for generations. Hey, there's a mystery I'm about ready to tell you about. Drum roll, please. Which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. Christ in you. That's the mystery. In the first week, John 16:33, we looked at Jesus' words that John recorded for us. In this world you will have trouble. Jesus says, but take heart, for I have overcome the world. But later on, after Jesus' death and resurrection and ascension and Pentecost and the pouring out of the Holy Spirit, John actually writes something else about this mystery. He says, he's not the one who is, he says, take heart, in this world you have trouble, take heart, Jesus says, I've overcome the world. He says, this one who is in you, is greater than the one who is in the world. That Jesus is not just out there overcoming, that Jesus is actually, by the Holy Spirit, being poured out into our hearts, taking up residence inside of us. So that we might persevere through our suffering, grow in our character, and deepen our confident, expectant hope in all of God's promises. I had a rough week. Started 2 weeks ago tomorrow. So 2 weeks back from tomorrow, on Monday that week. I woke up with a headache, sinus headache. I thought it was killing me. And I don't usually get headaches, and it just wouldn't go away. I come into the office that day, I read an email, and there was something in the email that I was really looking forward to. And it was that hope was dashed. And I was really, really disappointed. And as the week went on, the headache didn't go away. And the headache actually went from a sinus headache to a sinus and jaw headache. And it was just getting worse and worse and worse. And Thursday, it turned into a raging toothache. Like the kind of thing that if you touch it, you swallow wrong, it's like sends that pain throughout your whole head. It's Thursday. I'm running a marathon on Sunday. I'm doing a funeral on Friday. And I can't even, when the sermon that I recorded last Thursday, I don't know, if you went back and, my eyes were literally crossed while I was recording that message. I was in so much pain. So I got on an antibiotic, killed the pain enough that I could run the marathon. But funeral Friday, it was a celebration of a well-lived life. It was a loss. It was hard. And then the disappointment of a marathon that didn't go well. And now we're into this week. And on Tuesday, I had another really disappointing meeting with a group of people that I walked away with pretty discouraged. And now it's Wednesday of this week. And I need to write a sermon for today. And I had a wedding yesterday, and I needed to prepare for that. And I mean, honestly, Wednesday, I'm in low-grade suffering. Not like off the chart, but just low-grade suffering on about 6 different levels. And what I'm compelled to do is get to work. I got to write a sermon. I got to prepare a wedding. I got to get this stuff done. And what I know I need to do is to pause, to pray. I need to consecrate my life and my calling and my gifts to God again. I need to wait upon Him. I need to cry out. But I don't want to. I want to get to work because you know why? Because I'm afraid it won't work. I'm afraid I'm going to come out, I'm going to do it, I'm going to come out, and I'm still going to have all the work to do, and I'm going to be in the exact same place. That's a battle. I swear when I need it most, and it's not just me, it's the times that I feel most hopeless about doing it. Wednesday, I had the good sense to push through, to persevere. And I did not what I thought I should do, but what I know I needed to do. And not all at once. But through the day, Wednesday, the load lightened, spirit lifted. And by Wednesday afternoon, I'm clothed and I'm in my right mind again. It is a mystery. It is a mystery. But it isn't magic. It's a promise that God gave us. If you ask, it will be given to you. If you seek, you will find. If you knock, the door will be open. If anyone asks, they will receive. If anyone seeks, they will find. If anyone knocks, the door will be open. He said 6 times in one couple verses. Ask, seek, knock. Ask, seek, knock. For what? Your earthly fathers know how to give good gifts to their children. Right? If they ask for a loaf of bread, you don't give them a stone. You don't give them a snake. And your earthly fathers are not even that great. How much more will your heavenly Father give you the Holy Spirit for those who ask. It's the promise that God gives us. What are you going through right now? How's it going for you? Pressing on, pushing through, sucking it up, buttercup? Stop, pause, pray, ask, seek, knock. Wait, watch, pray. Our suffering is not endless. The effort, the perseverance is not pointless. And the result will not be disappointing. Lord, thank you. Thank you to the promise. Thank you that you hear and that you answer. Not always the way that we ask or the things that we want, but always by your Spirit, and always with what we need the most. Pray for people today who are where I was this past week and where I get to too many times, feeling stuck. And afraid to ask for fear of being disappointed. For the wisdom, the discernment, the shove of your Spirit to lean in, to cry out, to pray again, to watch, to wait, to listen, to ask, to seek, to knock. God, what we need, more than all the other things that we think we need in the world, what we need is your Spirit, your life in us. That's the hope of glory. That's the hope that you offer us. So help us get there, Lord. In whatever way each person needs it, help them get to that place. And thank you, Lord. Thank you for the way that you're going to show up in just the way they need it. I pray in Jesus' name.